Deaf roadies.
What's that?
Deaf roadies.
Deaf.
My first guest, Erik Eldenius, is currently the drummer for Billy Idol. He's worked with Steve Stevens, Cher, Donna Summer, Royal Machines, Venice, Dilana, LeAnn Rimes, Five for Fighting, Anastacia, Jackson Browne, Vanessa, Carlton, Mandy Moore, and Low Millions. My second guest is John Evans. He's a bassist who's worked for Tori Amos, Ben Folds, Cher, Third Eye Blind, Vanessa Carlton, Elton John, Paula Cole, Linda Perry, Chris Cornell, Sarah McLachlan, Bozz Skaggs, and Rita Moreno. I loved the Moreno there. I had to add that no matter what, because I'm like, that is super neat.
Amazing, too. Yeah, not to interrupt, but man.
No, there's no interrupting. But do you know how old she is? I looked it up.
Now I would guess that she's got to be, I'm guessing 89.
Dude, you're right on the money. She's 89.
Yeah.
And she looks great.
when we were, this was back when I was living in San Francisco and doing a ton of jazz gigs in between tours. It's usually what I did. And she called me to do this, a 3-week run at this old place that's gone now called the Ruby Room.
Okay.
And it was in this little cabaret joint in a hotel downtown San Francisco. And so that was, God, it must have been 15 years ago. So she was, even then, she was in her mid-70s. She's probably around 75. And she would just get right up on the piano and do dance numbers literally on the grand piano.
Nice.
Leg splits, the whole deal. She rapped. It was hilarious and amazing.
See, Erik, we need you to do the splits when you play the drums.
Yeah.
That's something I've never seen.
That'll be the last you see of me.
That'll be the last time.
Yep.
Speaking of making your parents proud, I'm intrigued by your background here, Erik. So, born in India, went to Sweden, right?
Yeah.
Went to Sweden. How old were you?
I was just a few months old. I was adopted by Swedish parents.
Oh, no kidding.
So this is before I even, remember anything.
So do you know anything about your, what would you call it? Your paternal? Is that right? Your,
my birth parents?
Yeah, birth parents.
Very little. I do have a letter from my biological mother, along with some photos of me, as a toddler, of her holding me, but that's about it.
Huh.
I don't really know. I mean, I know a bit of a backstory, but it's too boring to get into. But
are you intrigued to go find out more about them or not?
A lot of people ask me that. Yes and no. I mean, I think maybe the curiosity level has gotten stronger as I've gotten older.
Yeah.
I think when I, growing up, I think there was a, element of rebellion, inside of me that was just like, you know what, that was then. And, I'm just going to kind of move forward. And
you had a rebel yell.
Yeah, right.
Check it out, John.
It wasn't necessarily that I was in denial about the situation, but it's just, I figured, if the moment presents itself, like the world is getting smaller and smaller, as we know. And now with all these DNA tests and everything that you can do, that's kind of when it sparked my curiosity again. So
you have a good buddy who he looked into it and he was super intrigued because he met brothers and sisters and family members, and he didn't really stay in touch too much. It's not like he made this great connection and they're best of friends, but honestly, he called the people who adopted him and he just, I always say thanks and all this other stuff, but seriously, wow, my life would have been like insane different. And thank you for being you. It was nice. And then these other people, I was a Boy Scout as a kid, and I used to bug him, find out. Well, he was a Guatemalan Indian. And the truth was his parents were in the Peace Corps. And then they ended up adopting him afterwards and his sister. But the truth was there was nothing to research. He didn't know there was no one to look. There was nothing. So you can talk about as much as you want, but I got nothing to look up. And I was young. I didn't know about it. So anyway, it's interesting. So Sweden, you had an interest in moving, you said, to New York City, but but what are some of the cool stuff about Sweden, or would you move back to Europe at all?
Well, I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, there's still a lot for me to do here, given the fact that all my family. Right? Yeah.
See, that's cool.
There's a lot of great things about it. I don't think Sweden in particular would be the place. If I was going to move back to Europe, it would probably be more somewhere around the Mediterranean.
Oh, no kidding.
It's too dark and gray, man.
Yeah, you got a nice climate. Greece is beautiful. Italy, there's places in Italy, they're fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, but Sweden, ABBA. Billy Idol's a big ABBA fan. Just kidding.
Is he?
No, I have no idea.
I don't know. I've never asked him. I'm sure he is.
No, honestly. So we were talking earlier. I worked at a place called the Jungle Room, which is they closed down recently. They were a recording studio in LA. And Erik, I know you went through there quite a bit. And so Billy Idol came through and I was working there, and I was going to say he was the first big act, but we had Dogstar come through with Richie Zito first, which was big. It was Keanu Reeves' band. If you remember.
Oh, right. That's what it is.
Yeah. So anyway, then we got a guy named Billy Idol. I'm very excited, but Billy didn't really talk much. He kind of cruised through and he cruised out. Steve hung out quite a bit, and Steve was, he was really personal and stuff. But I remember with Billy, he had this like an 86 Mercedes, this big old tank. And remember the little alley, he would cruise it down the alley in this huge tank car. And I'd be like, how's he going to pull this thing out?
Oh, yeah. I always wonder about that. It's a miracle after all those years of working there that I never scratched my car.
It was a silly little alley. It was a walkway alley, and they'd park down there.
Yeah. Tiny.
Yeah. Ridiculous. When you guys build recording studios, wink, wink, make sure the parking's good.
Yeah, right. Well, John's got a beautiful studio. He's got plenty of parking.
Plenty of parking, for sure.
So, John, San Francisco. So you were born in San Francisco, raised in San Francisco?
Neither. I was born on Cape Cod.
Nice.
Massachusetts.
And that's why you've moved back there?
You got it.
Okay, that's what I was going to wonder about. So why San Francisco?
The short story is that I knew that when I was at Berkeley in Boston, I went there for 4 years, music school. And then the plan was always to go to New York, but I needed a place to shed for a few years, I felt like, before I went there, because I was really intent on just being an upright jazz player. And that was going to be my thing.
Such a cool thing, too. I love the Bips, right? Bass is so cool.
And so I went to San Francisco, and a bunch of my buddies from college, we all went out there at the same time and lived in a house together and had a band. And it was just a ball. And it really felt like home for a long, long time. And then I started getting, just getting more and more gigs. And that's where my first real gig being Linda Perry's, her first solo tour after Four Non Blondes. And, she was based in San Francisco at the time. And so that kind of started things. And at that point it just didn't make any sense to move to New York because it was happening there and I loved it there.
See, now I never wanted New York. I grew up in LA, but you're not in LA anymore either, right, Erik?
I'm just outside, just like an hour outside of Los Angeles.
Oh, you're not far. All right. I don't know, for some reason.
No, I consider myself, basically to live in Los Angeles still. Yeah, but it's funny, John, that, so both you and I were intent on moving to New York, huh? To be jazzers.
Yes, exactly.
Where did we go wrong?
I don't know what happened.
There's time. New York could use.
I think we made the better choice.
I think so. I was doing this session. The drummer Allison Miller, by any chance, great jazz drummer. And
no,
she's got a good name.
Yeah, she's killer. Yeah. And I remember doing a session in a studio in San Jose. And this was right before I moved back east, and so it was about 10 years ago, and around 40 years old, and she's about 6 or 7 years younger than me. I said, "Oh man, I just got back from a trip to New York, and we're in Brooklyn, and it's so great. I really think we're going to move back there finally after all these years." And she just looked at me. She said, "Yeah, that's cool, man. It takes a lot of balls to move to New York at your age."
Ouch! Shit, man, brutal. And you still say nice things about this person, dude. John, you're a good guy.
He's right. So it was good. It was good to get friends in check.
You cut out. What'd you say?
Sometimes your friends are the best ones to put you in check.
What, that you're an old man now?
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's all.
That's all we got. All right. You guys are both running recording studios. The question is I guess, what are your recording studios called and stuff? But is it as exciting? So I want to record. Well, you guys record whatever. If I want to record me singing a song for my girlfriend's birthday, you guys are like, yeah, sure, come on in. Or is there no.
No birthday songs allowed in my studio.
I'm a fucking great singer. Actually, I don't know. I think Eric's actually heard me try to sing before. He doesn't remember it. He blocked it from his memory. But I did a song years ago with him. I had to look it up. So it was called Good Friends. And so I hit up Dilana and you worked on the track. And I think I did meet you because you lived in like North Hollywood area, something like that, maybe. But
did I live with her?
Yeah, you were living with her.
Oh, that's Valley Village. Yeah.
Valley Village. So it was going to be for this film that I won't mention. The film sucked, but we never used the song in the film. But I looked it up. It was a song called Good Friends. Isn't that nice?
Better than a birthday song.
Yeah, it was not a birthday song. No, birthday songs are too many birthday songs. So who have you guys had in your studio recently, or what are you excited about in the recording processes that you got going on?
Go for it, John.
Gosh, recently I just had G-Love. We just made a new record for him, which is great and super fun. He actually moved to my little town a few years ago. And so when he's not on the road, I see him a lot. And then Tonya Donelly, you know her from Throwing Muses and Belly.
Neat.
Yeah, she's going to be here in about 2 weeks, spending a week working on a project.
So will they stay, if it's a small place where you're living, do they stay at your place, or will you have a little hotel around the corner type thing, or Airbnb?
Yeah, there's a lot of that available around here. And I have a couple beach cottages. And so, there are options.
That's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's almost like kind of like a retreat.
A little bit. But, I don't put people up on the premises, try to do my best to keep my home and studio separate, even though they are connected technically, which is a challenge. But I do the best I can that. And, over the last few years, the majority of the stuff that I've been doing, honestly, has been a lot of composing work. I have a writing partner, and we kind of have two different things that we do. And one of them is video game music for these crazy ass video game. We work for this designer named Ed McMillan, and we go under the name Ridiculon, and we make strange, aggressive music for these indie, super dark video games. And
it's such a huge industry. My friend does cars, and so they'll record the car. They'll get a racetrack, and they'll record the car doing fast, slow, engine turning on, all this stuff. But then they owe the rights to the sound. Well, the next video game comes along, and they got to do it all again because they don't own the rights. So I've got an old car called a Daimler, and it's a V8 Hemi, so it has a different sound. So they've been taking the car, they take it to the racetrack, drive it around, make a couple bucks, and they're just recording it.
I don't know. You could copyright car noises.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they're copywritten. They might be. I don't know. But what they do is they own it because they bought the service from you. So think about it. They got all the sound equipment that they paid for. So it belongs to them. And then I don't want them to. I want them to keep renting my car and sticking it on the track. And I get paid every time for doing nothing.
Mailbox money. Yeah.
Mailbox money. It's random and it's neat. So have you played any of the video games that you did music for, John?
I'm not a big video game player, believe it or not. Yeah, I should be, but I'm not. We do a ton of
it's too addictive.
Yeah, and there was one we just finished called Super Meat Boy, which is kind of a big indie game, and we just did their kind of big, rollout, the final installment of that series. And
Cool.
so, yeah, and it's been fun and keeps me off the street.
Well, that's important. I'm sure it gets very dangerous in the streets of your neighborhood there.
In a non-prostitute way.
Yeah, it's good. All right, I got a fun one here for Erik here since we're saying fun. So, did you watch the James Corden episode with you guys playing White Wedding?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you noticed. I'm assuming you did, but John, check it out. What James Corden says is at the end of the performance, he walks out, and he'll like hug everybody or whatever they do. It's the end of the show. And he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful drums." And then he says, "Billy Idol."
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, freaking great, right?
Yeah, it was a nice little surprise. Yeah, very flattering.
Drums. I was like, wow, James Corden, he knows what's important here. Poor Steve's running all over the stage playing guitar, and he's like, "Beautiful drums. Move out of the way. Move out of the way."
You just like the color of the drums,
Yeah, James Corden. We like him. What's your favorite movie, Erik?
Rear Window.
Really? I was going to expect you to say Godfather. How come you're wearing the Godfather shirt and like a few things I found on you online?
Oh, right. Yeah. No, man, Rear Window. That's where it's at.
Rear Window is a great movie. Great movie. I love all the Hitchcock stuff. I don't know. There's a certain thing to be said for strong storytelling. I think what's changed now is the Netflix shows and whatnot. Ozark, for example, the storytelling's so strong. But some of those old films, they just have character. There's finesse. There's something that just sucks you in. It's so good, especially like a Rear Window where you know the ending because you remember, but you'll still enjoy watching it again, maybe.
Yeah, but imagine the type of writing and storytelling you need to have if it's shot in one room, basically the whole movie. So that's why it's so.
I did it. I made a film. I made a film called The Still Life, and I ended up having it distributed by Warner Brothers. We did a whole festival. Oh, nice. Yeah, it was cool. I had a whole bunch of music guys in it. I had Jonathan Davis in it, Josh Todd, Louise from Veruca Salt, Matt Nelson was in it, Dizzy from Guns. So it was basically all these people I knew. We just shoved them in the movie and all these little bit parts, and it was fun. Right. And then the soundtrack is good because there's all these guys or a lot of these guys involved. But yeah, it's hard because you can't write Star Wars, man. You got to write something you can afford to make. And Hitchcock at the time was working on a budget too. So I shot the whole movie in the same house. It's hard, man. You have to be very creative about what your characters do and keep it interesting. Remember the film Pi? Darren Aronofsky? Fantastic film, all in one spot.
I know who he is, but no, I haven't watched that movie. No.
Oh, brilliant film. I think it's his first, but anyway. How'd you get the Billy Idol gig, Erik?
So that's a pretty long story that I'll try to keep short. In my early 20s, I had worked with this artist named Nick Frost that Keith Forsey, Billy's longtime producer, he was developing him. We weren't really touring or anything. I got the gig, and then we basically just stayed in Los Angeles and rehearsed and wrote. We did gigs, and we recorded. It was.
What year is this roughly?
Probably 98.
Oh, okay.
98, 99 maybe. I just moved to Los Angeles.
So did you do the Billy Idol stuff at the Jungle Room around like 2000-ish or something around that time?
Yeah, that's how the whole thing started. Yeah, Keith started.
So then I did. Yeah, you guys were doing the song Bitter Pill.
That one I not do. I mean, I'm sure he brought in all kinds of different people, but Keith brought me in on a number of sessions over the years, and I kind of got to work with a lot of the people that Keith and Georgia Moroder and Harold Faltermeyer, like all those guys that had basically been involved with Billy's career in one way or another. I kind of became like the house drummer, even, for Brian Reeves as well. So anyone that came through the Jungle Room, I basically worked with. And then in 2011, we re-recorded, again, this is before I was in the band. I got a call to re-record Rebel Yell and Dancing with Myself to get them to sound exactly like the original recordings. I guess they were just trying to own their new masters or something.
Yeah, I remember talking to Kevin about that.
Yeah, and then the year after that, 2012, it just didn't work out with the guy that they were using. And so I got the call. So basically that's how that happened.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Have you ever seen Keith play the drums?
Oh, yes. I mean, every single time we did a session, he always wanted to, sit down and, fuck around for a bit. And
I've never seen him play drums. He had a hit song in France, but he wouldn't tell me what it was to look it up. But Keith's playing. It's like his band.
Yeah. I interviewed him not too long ago for Modern Drummer magazine.
Cool.
And I got to know a whole other side of Keith that I had no idea about. And
he worked his butt off, he didn't, I think basically how he met Giorgio, and that was a good guy to have met. And that really spawned his career. But before that, I think he was struggling. And then nobody wanted to mess with Billy Idol because as I understood it, he was the real thing, which was a pain in the fucking ass. There was no gimmicky crap. He was in your face, ready for a fight. He was nuts. Nobody wanted to mess with him. And Keith stuck his neck out on the line to do so.
Well, Keith is, he's the same. He's exactly the same way. So,
yeah,
it's no surprise that they got along so well.
Yeah, I told you, I think, but did he talk about his dad being a fish and chip salesman?
He may have. I can't remember that.
Can you imagine that, John? Your father's a fish and chip salesman in England, and you come up to start working with Donna Summer, Billy Idol, Simple Minds, Flashdance, all the wonderful stuff this guy did. And he came from not a lot, humble beginnings, let's say. He's a good guy. His brother's a super nice guy too.
That's a big part of it, personable and being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I loved hanging out with Keith because he was really nice and he had wonderful stories, man. He could tell you some great stuff. Or Brian too. Brian's quieter, but when you get Brian going, he can tell you some great stuff. Because Billy liked to record, I'm assuming it's the same, by himself in the studio with no one else around. So just be Brian and Billy doing vocals. And they were saying back in the day, he would do, he put the mic down there to blow your ears out and thought it was funny because he was so fucked up. So years later, when the years you're talking about, everybody's older now, it was all nice and you're kind of joking around about it.
Yeah, he's calmed down. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's such a neat guy. Anyway.
I'm recording for him tomorrow, actually. He's not going to be here, but we're doing a couple of new songs here at my studio.
Neat. Very cool. Yeah. Did Steve write them or?
Billy and Steve wrote them.
Yeah, killer. I don't know. Such a great team, man, of songwriters.
That's for sure.
Yeah, such amazing stuff. And then Steve is a flamenco, right? He plays the flamenco. He does flamenco stuff a lot. So good.
Put out, 1 or 2 records.
So good.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Anyway, speaking of incredible, Tori Amos. I love Tori Amos. Little Earthquakes many, 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 many times. But the door opener for me was actually Smells Like Teen Spirit, which I liked. I mean, growing up, it was Nirvana just hit us all so hard. But when I heard her sing it, and I'm not a big fan usually of covers, but when I heard her sing, I'm like, who's this lady? And I went out and the only way you could get it was to buy it as a single. And so I went out and I paid like $15 for one song. And I listened to it a lot, man. But what a creative, absolute genius, Yeah,
she really, I really think she is, honestly. She does amazing things with cover songs. I mean, somehow she just makes them her own, no matter whose song it is, no matter how, part of the lexicon a song might be someone else's version. When she does it, it's hers for that 3 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
She did, remember a bunch of years ago live, she did this cover of Britney's "Hit Me Baby One More Time."
That's Eric's favorite song.
But it played it.
How did you know?
But it was,
I know. I found it on YouTube.
It's slow and dark and terrifying and just completely different meaning to the whole song. It's wild. She's great at that.
I have to check it out. I actually haven't heard that one. So
Yeah, neither have I.
And that sounds intriguing. I would like to. Because we're talking about Tori Amos obviously being an amazing piano player. Erik, so you played piano starting in high school?
I started taking lessons. I mean, we had a piano growing up, and I would always sit, mess around with it. And then at a certain point, I just thought that it would be good. Not necessarily because I'm a drummer first, but it was obviously something that I really enjoyed. But to really dive into learning music theory, I thought piano was a much better fit for me than guitar. Although I love playing guitar, but there's something visual about the piano that's just easier, I think, to grasp. I don't know. What do you think, John? Isn't it easier you can see it in such a different way versus like having a guitar in your hand, you can't even really see the frets or what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Erik's one of those super annoying people that can play everything really well.
Oh, come on.
Well, no, it's weird. So, just know that, like, he can actually play piano and actually play guitar and play.
That was my lead in. That's where I was going with this. So why'd you pick the drums, and why did you pick the bass? I'm going to say I know you guys both know how to play various instruments, but why select those to really push forward with? Was it just because your parents bought you that drum kit? Maybe if they hadn't, you'd be a guitar player, or John, did you start with the guitar and move over to the bass, or?
No, my dad was a kind of a part-time drummer. He was a butcher. And then he had bands, just cover bands and fun bands in the basement, every so often when I was a little kid. And so he had a set of drums set up, but he always wanted to play bass. And so he bought a bass. Actually, it's right behind me, right there, that bass in 1960.
Cool.
Nice.
And he bought this Fender P bass, but he never made sense to him. When I was a little kid, I remember I don't know, if 5 years old, the bass just made sense. I could turn on the radio and I could play bass to the radio is my earliest memories. But even as an older kid at 8 or 9, I started getting interested in the drums because they looked cool. And I remember asking him one day, well, why do you hit this drum and not that drum? And what do you do? And he said, I don't know. I just play them. So he just he didn't really.
This was your dad.
Yeah. He really had no, I don't know. There was no trying to show me, well, here's how you play a beat. So I was like, okay, well, he can't explain the drums and it doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just going to keep playing bass because it always made sense. And
you imagine the conversation about the birds and the bees, Erik?
There was no conversation.
Okay, good.
You'll figure it out. But bass always sounds the loudest to me when I hear music.
Yeah.
It comes out more for me.
So when I was a kid, I was in the junior high school band. I sucked, but the bass clarinet was the coolest, man. I just remember that womp, 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 and I loved it. And all I heard was that. Yeah, I guess it's the same idea. It's really neat. So your dad is a musician. Your parents are totally okay with music being part of your lives. How did your father get into music so that he learned? And why do you think your parents wanted you, Erik, to try playing the drums? What do you think the idea was, with the pathway? Why that?
I don't really think they tried to do anything. I think it was.
Did you ask for a drum kit, you think?
At some point, I'm sure I did, or they probably understood that was the thing that I.
Were you just like hitting shit at the dinner table all the time? And they're like, we got to give him.
Yep. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, we have to make what he's doing at the dinner table louder. So
we got to make our neighbors happy.
Yeah.
Parents go and get a drum kit because they want it in the
They're
house.
like piccolo
exactly
drum.
Right.
Yeah.
No parents would like, you would have to be fucking nuts. Like, it's like you're just asking for a bunch of noise and trouble. But we were lucky, or I was lucky, should I say, that I grew up in a house out in the woods where we had a basement, and we didn't really have any neighbors like next door per se, and so it worked out. But I mean, to this day, I feel for my siblings, because I mean, thank God my parents were so supportive. Like I can't even remember a single time they told me, like, stop playing the drums. Like, never. Like, I would stumble home drunk as a teenager, and like 2 a.m, like, think that it's a great idea to go downstairs and start, playing along with some, records and whatnot. And it just never happened. So, I think for a lot of people that have been able to continue to play the drums and also make a career out of it, I always say 2 things, like, you need supportive parents and you need a basement, because I truly don't understand how it would work otherwise, unless, like these days you have all kinds of, dedicated rehearsal halls and, drum rooms, like, at least in Los Angeles, like, you have dedicated buildings that are just for drummers, and you can, split like a room with another drummer. And, but that wasn't available, at least where I grew up. And, so, there were so many different supporting factors that people may not think about in terms of, like, he just got a drum kit and then he was off and running. That's not the case. Because I hear about, I've met a lot of drummers that they're like, I really wanted to play the drums when I was a kid, but we just didn't have the facility to support that, or I couldn't find a drum teacher, or I grew up in an apartment. So, I was stuck with electronic drums or something. And then, of course, like anyone, what do you fucking lose interest? I mean, that shit's not inspiring to say the least. So there you have it.
That's neat. And how did your father get into music, John?
Well, I mean, it was just a part-time fun thing for him. He wasn't a musician per
He just
se.
wanted to have a hobby. So you had instruments all over the place?
Yeah, we had basses and drums, and that's it.
That's all you need.
Huh. Yeah, that's all anybody needs. It's a perfect podcast. Your dad is so happy. How cool is that?
That's what we have. And and so, as a kid, I played trombone, I took piano lessons, I played saxophone, a little bit of this and that and everything. And, high school band, trombone all my life. And, until
Jesus, I want to see that.
Yeah.
Next time I come out, I want to see you bust that out.
I got one a couple of weeks ago. I got one. It's in the closet.
Killer. Right. So Tori Amos writes very personal material. When you're first hearing tracks that are so personal to the songwriter and you're going to be working with them, is it something that I don't want to say nervous because you guys are professional musicians, but are you more inspired possibly to make sure you do, I'm going to say, a better job because it's such a personal track or a standout track, reaches you on a different level because of what it represents? Or are you guys always trying to make it the best it can be because that's what you're always doing? Is there such a thing as a standout where you want to make a little bit more, make it a little bit more better?
Of course. I mean, if you tried to come to my studio and record a birthday song,
we're back to that. It was Erik's birthday. It's coming up. I was trying to be nice.
Birthday, then that would be different.
That would be different.
But yeah, I mean,
it'd be all trombone, by the way. That'd be the whole track.
Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, with Tori, she truly is a very, very special artist, and her lyrics are intense, and her playing is fantastic, and the song structures are often difficult, and there are often a lot of odd time signatures, and she's very encouraging in having you do something to enhance the song. Like, I never sit there and I'm just going to lock in with the drums here. It's not like that. It's very much a 3-part organization where, ever since I've been working with her since 1998, Matt Chamberlain has always been the drummer. And up until very recently, just because of COVID, we've tracked everything in the same room at the same time, vocals, piano, drums, bass, live. And because of that, things move very quickly, and there's a lot of inspiration involved. And we kind of developed a language that has, Matt brings incredible things to her music and her songs just by the choices he makes. And she's a little orchestra all on her own between her voice and what she can do on piano. So often my job is to find a way through all of that. I'm not mimicking her left hand or locking in with Matt's kick drum. I have been given the opportunity to find my way through, much more like Paul McCartney might play. Not that I'm Paul McCartney, right? But in that way where the bass.
Yeah, he keeps bugging me to come on. It's not way more interested. Talk to him.
Exactly, but much more in that way that I'm able to find my own way through the songs and have my own voice that communicates with the two of them equally, but in different ways. And so for me, I feel extremely fortunate to have found that group and been able to make music with them for so long.
So you're more intrigued by the symbiotic process than maybe the final? You like working with the people?
Absolutely. The people are hugely important. And with her specifically, there's always a story to the song.
Yeah.
It has to do with, the fairies or something political or a story about some tragedy in a person. There's always something there. And it's very important to her that you understand the basic story. A lot of the words can be so cryptic that you don't really know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
She'll give you an overview of, this is what this is about. And like you said earlier, she's very brilliant, and probably genius level. And just, I don't know, so it's a lot when she tells you something. Like, she will bring the backstory through the ages. It might, it might span, this is from the Sumerians, and this is some Native American culture, and then this is like the current political situation, and Magdalene, and it all ties in. And
it's like, here's the bass, now go.
Now go.
Now go. Make it make sense. That's neat. What about you, Erik? So you're doing Billy Idol stuff tomorrow, you said you're working on. So what's the excitement you get when a new track comes through? I'm assuming you grew up as a Billy Idol fan.
Later on, my sister, who's 5 years older than me, I remember hearing the song Cradle of Love.
Sure.
Over and over as a kid. Right. So, yeah, I definitely became a fan later on. But much what like John was saying, in terms of when someone comes to you with a song that is very personal to them, and you try to understand the backstory, obviously you get involved with the lyrics and, the meaning of the song and the mood of it, all of that stuff. I find a lot of the times that it just makes it so much easier to make choices, because now you have been invited into sort of their world and the history of that song. I'm not saying that it's always easy, but most of the time, a perfect example is this band Venice that I made a record with a few years ago. And they were very good about before each song, they would sit down and talk about what the song, how it originated and what it was about. And some of the subject matters were very dramatic. And so because of that, I'm just using that as an example. It made it a lot easier for me to sort of visualize what they were going through emotionally and all the things surrounding those situations, how they took place. and came up with things that even surprised me, because you're kind of, you're thinking outside of the box. You're not just like John was saying, also, you're not just sitting down and trying to figure out the parts that can lock with each other. And, you don't always want to go to your sort of bag of tricks. Yeah. Sometimes it's really, really amazing when someone can get you out of that. I try to do that on my own sometimes. And I, maybe not just for the sake of doing it, but it obviously is a lot easier if someone tells you a story that just automatically puts you out there. So
yeah,
that's kind of the best way I can describe
that. A lot, like, though, I did I hope I did good enough, or are you usually like, oh fuck yeah, that was awesome, here you go. John has conviction, man. So here you go.
Oh, he certainly does.
Tori, check it out.
Yeah, I feel good about things most of the time.
Good.
You gotta.
I think it comes across in people's. So I worked as an art dealer for a long time. I do a lot of memorabilia, but as an art dealer, people say, well, how do you know, Picasso's, the signature's fake so often. And a lot of times what it is it's just when you sign your signature, you just do it without thinking. The other times when they spend time. So when you do it, knowing what you do, it's your craft. You have conviction. I think it would cross over.
A good analogy for sure.
Yeah. All right. See that? See that, Erik? Erik had doubts.
Of course not. No, but it's like another good example of that is that record, John, that we worked on a few years ago out here in Los Angeles, where unfortunately nothing came of this record, but it was so much fun to make in terms of, like, remember, John, how like the song structures weren't necessarily there. I don't think he even really knew what he wanted, but he basically he had a couple of ideas per song, and he basically just wanted us to jam on these songs. And then I think the idea was that he was going to try to piece stuff together down the road. And
that's a different way of doing it. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but I got to say, I mean, I don't know about you, John, but I had a great fucking time.
Oh man, that was awesome. And we're kind of put on the spot in a certain level, and there really was no there. So we could, you and me and Jeffrey Wood, we were able to just make some music based on our whole life experiences and a couple chords that the kid had. And it was great.
Yeah. So it was a situation where you couldn't really listen back to a take and realize, oh, we got it, or we don't, because that's going to be determined later, right? We were just in this creative space, and we were just given the freedom to basically do whatever we wanted. So it was difficult to walk away knowing, did we get a good take or not? Sure. So it's just, but that could be such a great thing, because that really, you put the value on the process, sure, not the result per se. And I think that's also equally important. I try to implement that as much as I can when I'm making records too, that, you can see people struggling so hard with the process because they're so concerned about the end result that, it just kind of defeats the purpose. Like, because you have to be able to enjoy the process.
Game. At the end of the day, I think you do creative outlets because it's fun. It's exciting. You feel a reward at the end. You get something a little out of the ordinary, or maybe you just continued on your pursuit. But I think it's important.
If it's not, not all music is fun, right? But if there's all different kinds of energy that can go into it. It can be fun, it can be moody, it can be dark, it can be aggressive. But if it doesn't feel like something, right, you're doing it, it's not going to feel like anything when you listen back.
Yeah, I can see.
Very true.
Makes sense. Yeah.
People need to understand. And if you're tracking something and all you're feeling is fear and worry about what's going to happen to this later on, that's all you're going to hear when you listen back. You're going to hear trepidation and that lackluster. But whatever mood you're going for, if you lean into it and everybody's leaning into that, you're going to get something you're going to want to listen back to, and you'll feel that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
very true.
Yeah, totally true. So I was putting together a podcast, and my friends have kids now, and my friend's daughter is in 5th grade, and she came out and she was very obstinate. She said, you need to ask your guests when they first felt famous. And I actually like the idea of it because if you think of a 5th grader, we're talking about a little girl here, and we broaden the idea. So when you first felt good about yourself, you were on the right career track, you had a moment that meant something to you. There may have been felt like a celebrity, felt famous, maybe. But when's a moment you can think of in your career that you were like, wow, something's good here?
Go ahead, Erik.
Well, first off, certainly don't feel famous simply because I'm not. But if I was gonna,
the little girl, by the way, the most famous person, I told her that my friend owned 5 Taco Bells. That guy was famous because she's in 5th grade.
I don't even know
that guy. She wants to meet that guy. But anyway, okay. Sorry to interrupt you. What do you say?
Well, I mean, I guess there's so many different points I can look at in my, what do you call it? Different blocks of where I felt that, okay, now I can sort of feel that I've maybe reached another level. And that's always going to be different for different people. But I think, the first thing, which is, I guess is a pretty obvious one, is when you realize that I can actually make a living playing the music. I mean, I've never had another job in my life. So that in itself, I felt for me was a big, stepping stone in my life.
Yeah.
Something that I'd been wanting to do and dreamt of my whole life, that I was able to move to Los Angeles from Sweden in this small little town and be able to pursue a career in music. That to me is still the number one thing. And then, of course, along the way, that there's 100 different stepping stones I could give you as examples in terms of, how my career has moved. But without a doubt, is that the first thing that I felt really, really good about and proud of.
Yeah.
So
it's good.
Yeah. Like Erik's saying, I'm a bass player by my nature. I'm never wanted to be famous or household name. It's just not that guy. I'm there to help. But there were definitely times, when the first real touring I ever did was with Linda Perry back in '95 or something. So the first time I got on a tour bus, that was incredibly exciting. And we were just playing clubs, and I remember we got, this ties in with Erik too. We got a short stint opening for The Who on Quadrophenia tour, where Billy Idol was on that tour.
Really?
And, with The Who. And so that all of a sudden we went from clubs to, playing arenas and, just opening for The Who, but it was tremendously exciting. And I remember the first night where, after our set, Roger Daltrey came in with a bottle of vodka, wearing a bathrobe just to say welcome to the tour. And he was so generous and kind, and Billy Idol was hanging around, and it was, all of a sudden I was, among these legends and true stars. And it really felt something. I was playing bass through John Entwistle's bass rig, on stage. It was,
it's amazing.
Like, wow, okay, nobody knows who I am, but at that moment I felt different.
Well, you plugged into the right thing. I mean, that's cool.
And so that was cool. And then after the few years later, when I remember getting the call from management that I was going to, join Tori and Matt on the road for the Choir Girl Hotel tour. And that was that was really, really, really exciting. And that went from, we're on the cover of Musician magazine, and at that point she was huge in the late 90s. We were playing Madison Square Garden. And so even though, again, just a very anonymous person, but still when I would be in a major city and she had tons of very intense fans and people would recognize me. And that was strange. And, but also it felt like what you're describing, the fifth grader would probably think that was cool.
It is cool. It's very cool. Have you ever seen the David Letterman interviews with Billy Idol way back in the day? You got to check him out. You'll love him. He's awesome.
I think so.
He's good because, David Letterman's throwing the punches at him and Billy Idol's just chucking them right back in his face. They're really, really fun to watch. I don't know how many there are, but there's at least two. And I mean, this is right in the beginning. And he's so smug. You got to check it out. You'll really like it. He's a smart dude, man. He's quick. And David Letterman's like the best ever interviewer guy. He's so good. Anyhow, really appreciate you guys hanging out. And I look forward to staying in touch and all that jazz. And I'll let you guys know when it's released. Hey, thanks for watching Party Like a Rockstar. If you're not already subscribed to the Facebook or YouTube channels, do it. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The handle is Party of Stars. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.